signal.
Mm-hmm. We're good to go.
Hey, everybody, it's Laura Eisenhower. I'm joined today by a very profound panel. These are all speakers and co-creators of this event, this 3-day online event called Unveiling Galactic Heritage and an Unlimited Human Potential. We have 11 speakers all together, and we got a few of them with us. And 3 of them presented today. And we got Justin, I believe, on Tuesday. And these presentations were amazing. I mean, unbelievable, 90 minutes. And with the option to have constant replays and the ability to purchase even now, despite the fact that it's already begun, this is something you might want to jump on. So if you do purchase today, you'll get the replay and you'll be able to see all these speakers that presented today and the rest of this conference. And we have another panel also on Tuesday and the rest of the speakers. And the registration link, you can check out who all the other speakers are, but I can tell you real quick, Nori Love, Kathy O'Brien, John D'Souza, Dan Winter, and Justin Deschamps, who's with us today. And to find out more about them, I would go to the registration link so that we can just jump into these questions. And the way that we're going to do it is taking questions from the audience and spending a little bit of time with each speaker so that we can have direct questions for them instead of one question for the whole group. And again, the co-creators of this event who are also speakers are Aage Nost and Neil Gaur. Neil Gaur, the host of PortalToAscension, and Aage Nost, broadcast Team Alpha. Okay, so you guys ready? And I see a question already. And we're going to start with Brad. So can we get some questions for Brad, and then we can do Tony next? I already see questions coming up for Tony. And if you guys want to share a little bit about yourself, for the audience, maybe just one line, not to make it too long, but just if you guys want to know more as far as bios, you can find it on the registration link. Okay, so starting with you, Brad. Any questions for Brad? And I'm looking in the right place. Should I look at the Q&A instead? I should look in the Q&A instead, don't you think? All right, so if you guys have questions, put it in the Q&A, and we're starting with Brad. And if I don't see something pop up or I can't find anything, we got plenty of questions for Brad, so we don't have to rely on the audience. But let's see, kind of looking in 2 different places here. Well,
I can give a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll just channel a question for you, Brad. Oh, we do Brad Olsen's question, right? Okay. All right, brother. So, we've spoken so many times. So actually, I probably know the answer already. But you've been down to Antarctica. You went there with an intention for to see and kind of check things out and see if there's any credibility to what a lot of people have been claiming, right? When you were there, can you kind of maybe touch on your adventures a little bit and your experience of doing that? And you did mention that a lot of places that possibly had some anomalies there you couldn't even get to. So maybe you can just start out with just kind of giving us some backstory of that.
Yeah, sure. It's funny. From midnight till 2 a.m. this morning, I was on Coast to Coast talking about Antarctica and about the New Schwabenland region, which I see in the chat room just came up. So Antarctica is this vast frozen continent. It's the 5th largest continent in the world. Very mysterious in so much that it's also the most volcanic continent. So there is the propensity to create these large under ice domes with all the geothermal activity. So it was really my intention to go down there, Neil, to look into a lot of these mysteries. As far as I know, I'm the only one in this field that's actually been down there looking into this stuff. And so when I was going down there, I learned that there are 3 massive craft under the ice that are nicknamed Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria, Columbus's 3 maiden voyage ships to the New World, that are hidden under the ice, and some of them in the Antarctic summer reveal themselves. I think I pinpointed one of them in the New Schwabenland region of Germany. I did not travel to that part. That is pretty far away. It's directly below South Africa. The region I went to I drove that forward expedition down to Ushuaia, Argentina, which is the southernmost city of the world. And from there, just inquired with boat captains and actually found a way with Emily Infinity, who did the Detroit Disclosure Fest that you spoke at, Tony. And we just got our way on a sailboat. It was 14 of us on a 72-foot sailboat. And we both got violently ill from seasickness on the way down. I think I lost about 25 pounds. But everywhere we went, from talking to the sea captains and crew before the voyage and after, to all the people that worked at the research stations. Have you ever heard of anything about large crafts under the ice? Have you ever heard of any antediluvian civilizations? Have you ever heard of pyramids poking through? And uniformly, the answer was no. And I don't think it was because they were hiding anything from us. It's just that they didn't really know the answer. And a lot of them were college age students who were there as interns and were going down to work at a research station just for the summer months down there in Antarctica, which is the season is from November until the beginning of March. And so right about now, all the most of the base workers have cleared out. There are a couple bases that stay open year round, and there's only 1,000 people on the 5th largest continent of Earth. So when people say that the planet is grossly overpopulated, I kind of have to question that reasoning. The other thing is, a lot of people don't realize we live on an ocean planet. It's 29% landmass, and over 70% is covered with water. It really is an ocean planet. So again, not overpopulated if you look at it in that context of that. So what we did find was that there definitely is a no-fly zone over a portion of the South Pole. And as I said, with the volcanism heating up underneath the polar plateau, which is over 2 miles thick. So the Amundsen Scott South Pole Research Station is at 11,000 feet elevation. In fact, Antarctica as a whole is the highest elevation continent in the world. And so this hole under the ice is supposed to be massive, about 40 miles across, so much so that Admiral Byrd flew a plane over on a reconnaissance, saw it, and felt comfortable enough dipping his plane down in it, circling around and coming back. What he saw is often disputed or discussed, because he said he saw mega flora and fauna. So woolly mammoths and long extinct creatures down there with palm trees and ferns and so forth. And I will say that it is in the fossil record that Antarctica was once a tropical continent, including ferns, fossils, and species of dinosaurs that have only been found in Antarctica. So it's certainly a land of great mystery. It's like the deepest depths of the ocean. They're the last frontier, the last truly unexplored areas of the world. And I often say, if you wanted to hide out, either as an ET species coming and going to this planet or wanting a permanent base, or if you were some of these globalists, the cabal, who want to stay out of view or have sort of like what Tony was explaining, off planet, but on this planet, bases with factories and other machinery. You've got geothermal resources, you've got ways to hide under the ice, and Antarctica would be the place. So I was going down there to find out a lot of these mysteries, Neil, but didn't really conclusively come back with what I was hoping to find. However, doing more research and scouring over Google Earth and looking at Antarctica time and time again, finding a lot of really interesting tidbits. So maybe the next time we do an online conference, I'll do the hidden anomalies of Antarctica talk to you guys.
Oh, that's awesome. So 2 quick questions, because we'll move on to the next person. And thanks for that awesome answer. Do you think the giants were ETs? And do you think you'll do another tour to South America or Egypt?
Oh boy, I'm a world traveler. I've been to all 7 continents now. And I'd love to get back out on the road. The question is, how are things going to open up? And do I need one of these travel passport things? I hope not. Would love to go back to both locations. Absolutely. The Giants, well, I'll tell you, as I said in my presentation, don't have the central suture. I caught a little clip that you guys were playing of Brian Forrester in the Paracas Museum. He was showing some other features of the skull. Very human-like, but not human. So what does that mean? Were we once inhabited by extraterrestrials? I think it's a pretty good possibility, at least when you look at the DNA, that they have a hybridization of human DNA and an unknown DNA on the father's side. So more mysteries to be solved, but it's interesting that in almost all of the megalithic sites, you found burials of these elongated, larger craniums that come all the way back up here, about 30% larger than our human skulls, buried in and around these megalithic sites.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brad. And if you're still able to stick around, we'll be coming back around with more for you. And we'll go to Tony. Awesome. So we'll go to Tony next, if that works for you.
Sure. Hi, guys.
There's a lot of questions.
Great info, Brad.
I'll take this one. What was the future vision that the aliens showed you, please? I mean,
First, I want to say hi to Dan. How you doing, buddy? It's good to see you again. We just talked not too long ago. It's good to see you. They were flashes of traveling and talking at the time. They were flashes of travel and doing talks. And then when it all disconnected, I swear, I mean, I don't know if on the feed, if you guys could see the picture of me, but basically it was when the communication happened, it opened, you know, words are data. You know, you can assign a data number to a packet of words, to a paragraph of words. You get so many K. It turned into massive amounts of data instantly. So beyond words. So, you know, and I say it like this, like, what'd you do last week? What'd you do last year on your birthday? And the answer would be the entire month of your birthday worth of data. That's how fast that's what that was like. So when it showed me a glimpse of the future, it was instantly, and it was 20 or 30 days worth of travel and things. And then when the communication ended, it said, okay, bye. You know, it didn't say goodbye, but you know what I'm saying? When it took its leave, the communication went, and there was a real loss of access to information. And I forgot what it showed me. Of course that was on purpose, you know, but it was like, while we were talking, I had access to things that it was thinking too. And when the communication ended, it just went away. And I was left with not the imagery, but of the feelings. I had the feelings. I had a really positive, I went, wow, this is great. I went, I can't wait to tell everybody about this. You know, I woke up, I just felt like, you know, like I felt like I had just spent the day with my grandmother as a kid. Do you get what I mean? Like that was the emotional sensation of it. Like I felt like this loving feeling, you know, I had a buzz kind of from it. But all the like, I explained it to my wife, and right, she doesn't even believe, if aliens were real, they'd be in the Bible. That was her take on things. And back then, and I couldn't explain it because the memories were gone. So it showed me the future, but it also took it away. It dangled a carrot of the future. I don't want to be too wordy in this answer.
But what was the name of because there's different quantum like access technologies that can view the past and future. Which one did they call?
So at a separate situation, on the return, after my 20 years was over, on the return, I was taken to, and it was back to the moon base. The only reason I know it was on the moon, well, other than being told that we were flying there, was because they were using what they called a chronovisor, chronovisor, whatever. It was an acronym. It was a chronovisor. And they were looking at, while they were putting me back, they were looking at probable outcomes of my future to see, you know what I mean? Like there was a screening process, and they were looking at probable futures. They didn't have the actual single future, but they would narrow it down. There was a percentage of probable future timelines that they had to get me programmed to do. And what happened was they were seeing that I was going to I was going to gather my memories back in most of the futures. And they actually sent me to another division of the process. And during that time, I saw it was like a corner lot with a window that I could see the lunar surface. But it was a chronovisor, and they did not get it to a satisfactory number to where I was going to forget the entire thing, because people that had done my job and been through my level of experience were not supposed to remember a thing. And
Didn't that put you in danger then?
it did. And what happened was they told me, so the shorter reptoids were very strong. They were from a heavier gravity planet, and he was basically security in case I was going to become violent. And he said, look, you need to cooperate with this, or they're going to give you a lobotomy. They're going to give you a brain surgery, and you're going to go back and be crippled the rest of your life. If you don't cooperate with this and get that where you don't remember this. And, this was back in a 10-year-old body. This is after the whole process happened, and I was back in a 10-year-old body. This was the final steps before they were putting me back in bed that night. And they finally got to the point, they said, look, he's going to remember no matter what. It's not just send him to surgery. And I was going to get surgery. Basically, I was going to get lobotomized. And when they got so he walked me, he quit talking to me. He was a reptile. I was dead to him at that point. And he quit being buddies with me because I was going to be altered. And when we got to the check-in window with another gray at a window, just like in a hospital, when we got there, they had no record of me. My records have been deleted. And he said, well, if there's no records, it doesn't matter if he remembers or not. But we cannot do a surgical procedure unless we have a record to sign, and he doesn't have a record, so just send him back. And the reptoid looked at me and he said, this is your lucky day. You are the luckiest guy on this rock today. And this is your lucky day. And he took me back, and the next thing I remember, the other thing is, a lot of times I talk about the moon experience. They had the ability to just put you in a catatonic state. So there's a lot of A and B that is hard to describe, because when they walked you from somewhere, they could flick you, probably on a hypnotic level where you were in a kind of dazed state. And right then and there, he put me in a dazed state, and I woke up in my bed. That's literally the last thing I remember from the entire experience, was him saying, this is your lucky day.
Dang. My gosh. I don't know if you have anything you want to add, Neil or Aage, or if we should, based on time, move to the next person. But thank you for sharing that, Tony. Wow.
No, just for me, keep it flowing. Great information. Thank you.
I was just wondering about anything specific outside of yourself that would benefit the other people of knowing about that was shown to you about the future.
So it's hard when you say, I had to talk with my daughter not too long ago. She said, they showed you the future. During that process where they were looking at probable timelines, I kept seeing my death. Like at the end of my life, they would show me that. And I kept seeing how I was going to die. And it wasn't pleasant. But people, like my daughter said, well, what happens to me? What is my job? What do I grow up? Who do I marry? Do I marry my boyfriend? I don't have that kind of access. These are very small glimpses that they were showing me while I was hooked into a machine. And, I wish I could give more, but I just don't have. The other thing is it's also dangerous to speculate and say, well, I think that there was something that happened, and then it not be, you know what I'm saying? And then lead people to believe something that's not true. And I'm really afraid of doing that.
Yeah, you give it energy.
Right. Because these are probabilities, not necessarily anything fixed, but if we give it attention and we begin to enable it, it just kind of, and I'm very about prediction.
Laura, that's a home run. Let's just go ahead and say it like this, that the future is not fixed. If there's anything that I learned from that I would tell you, is that your future is not fixed, and that there are probable futures that they hone in on, but your future is still to be determined. You're not completely fixed into a future. That's what they were trying to get around. They had a way of getting it into a percentage of these timelines are probably going to happen, but they weren't sure either. They were dealing with probabilities and not a fixed future. And that's kind of where we're at. So maybe that's the takeaway.
This is very much in the theme of unlimited human potential, is that we have a creative imagination. We have the ability to shift perspectives and determine or decide what we're going to align with. And just you being able to pull through your memories, this shows how advanced the human spirit is. And intention and willpower, the ability to overcome what you've overcome and gain your memories back, just goes to show how incredibly powerful we can be. And we want to tap into that human potential, especially in these times that are really trying to take us into the next level of enslavement. So really, really appreciate you being here, and we'll probably be able to come back around to another question for you. And so let's talk to Dan and Dan Willis. Great presentation. All of you just really awesome. So there's a lot of questions here for you, and we are going to do a little bit of a mix of what audience is asking and maybe some thoughts that come up with some of us. But Dan, do you have a book listing all the history is in your presentation? And also, if I could kind of put a double question in there. Actually, I'll just ask that first, and then there's kind of a big one. But have
Laura, I forgot to mention at the end that all the references and everything that I went over with, the documents and everything are at thewebmatrix.net. If anybody wants to do the due diligence and compare with their own research, my notes with theirs, that's where you can find it.
Oh, sweet. Excellent. Somebody's asking, do you know of the USO activity hotspot in Costa Rica?
No.
I don't know that either. I don't know if any of us do. If anybody, no.
I think they're everywhere.
Right? And there was a different section with a bunch of questions. And I don't know. While I look, Aage or Neil, any thoughts coming in? Any questions?
I would like to mention that Soviet naval intelligence and the U.S. Navy knows that more than half of the UFOs coming in and out of this planet are coming out of our oceans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they just released that was it USS Omaha footage a couple of days ago of the ship going into the ocean as well, transmedium ship.
Yeah, notice it's saturating the media right now. They're prepping everyone for the next month.
Well, with what you know about the future being safeguarded in the event that things would get as bad as they have, do you feel that some of that involves being able to correct things like the you-know-what and being able to just bring about a benevolent disclosure that can help mitigate some of the assaults and damages that have reached a pretty high proportion in these times for people?
The questions to me?
Yeah.
Well, my interest, I'm a voice that's coming 20 years from the past, trying to say that our media has been infiltrated and is essentially the enemy of the people. They are manipulating people's perceptions. This is why the 20 witnesses and the witnesses behind them, 500, never got to get exposure to the public because of the mainstream media. So the mainstream media is controlled by agenda. So if it's going to be coming out in June, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of suspicious things that saying that, like Dr. Eric Davis saying that, oh, we haven't made much progress. When we know that we've had, as Tony and many others know that, we've had advanced technologies built back in the 1950s and go faster than the speed of light. So whenever I see something contradictory, I always look for, well, what's the agenda behind that? Why would they lie about something like that? So, I just tell the public to pay attention to all the information, do a lot of research, and don't be like that word, bamboozled into some false narrative that will fill an agenda of these deep state elements.
Nice. Any thoughts, Neil or Aage?
Yeah, I just want to comment on that yeah, for sure, right now discernment is more like, we need it more than ever. And we've been talking that for a while. I remember even, Justin and I, Justin Deschamps, and I did a podcast almost 2 years ago now, specifically on discernment, and this conversation is still there. And it's kind of like, what is the rule of thumb in order to know what the agenda is? Because there's so much conflicting information, there's so much misinformation out there, and there's all types of agendas. So what is, maybe this is a good question for you, what is a rule of thumb that you can go by to really use your discernment and to sift through, all this stuff out there? Because it does look like that maybe some of these disclosures are their own technology and they're trying to say it's ET. So it's just all over the place at this point. So what is your advice for people to use? How can they use their discernment in this moment? For you, Dan.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my hearing's so bad. Well, there's different groups. One group is talking alien threat a lot. That term is used a lot. There's other groups, and I'm not going to name names, but there's other groups that are saying all the ETs are benevolent. And there's groups that are connected with, I've been researching deeply onto all this and trying to understand the agendas myself and see who are, going back to the documents that have been authenticated, how the Vatican has, worked with the Nazis in the past and how they wanted to have containment. They're not going to have disclosure unless they're not going to use an event like disclosing the truth unless they can make it work for their agenda. And so, I would be very leery. The thing that's shocking to me is the untimely death of Mark McCandish, whose testimony states that we've had the technology back in the 50s, and the fact that Mike Tuber said that the Tic Tac, which was so heavily promoted on the New York Times, so that even your grandmother knows about UFOs, it would destroy that narrative. He has retracted and said he made the whole story up, even though it's been supported by 3 naval personnel. So things like that are highly suspicious to me. In other words, if they do have the plan, so far they did do the terrorist event after this event happened. And if their plan is to, and they did do the rogue nations, and the asteroid is the next, and if they wanted to pull it off, they have the technology, of course, to pull off a alien invasion for an alien threat situation. And so you have some that are kind of saying the aliens are our saviors. Other ones are saying the aliens are our demise. Maybe some of the secret space program witnesses say about some of these races is that they come in to a planet and devastate it with one race, and another race comes in as the savior, but it's all a trick. And so, it's important to look at all these testimonies from people who had no motivation other than to reveal the truth and see what matches with what's being said.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And really appreciate all your info. And we have Justin. He's going to be speaking, I believe, on Tuesday. And Justin Deschamps has been a truth seeker all his life, studying physics, psychology, law, philosophy, and spirituality. And the reason I'm sharing a little bit about his bio is because those that joined us today weren't able to hear about him, and he wasn't one of the speakers. And so just to bring you more familiarity, but again, look at the registration page to get the full picture. And with all this stuff that you've been studying, and you're a big dot connector. You talk about the holistic tapestry of our ever expanding knowledge. What sort of picture of that tapestry can you kind of show us? Like, what are some of the most significant common threads or dots that you've been able to connect that can help people just feel a little bit less compartmentalized, or like some school of thoughts are over here and some are over there? It's like you do a really great job at integrating it to a place that people can all kind of agree, even if they're coming from different angles. It's like making sense of things. Anything kind of coming through with what I'm saying about that, or any of the projects or things you're currently, doing that are shining light on a particular sort of tapestry, metaphorically speaking, that you would want to bring to us today?
Sure.
That was an okay question, but
Yeah, well, it gave me a lot to work with. Well, I really like, just as a general introduction to what I could share about that, is that, when it comes to discernment and trying to make sense of all the things we're hearing from everywhere, whether it's from an experiencer perspective, a deep researcher, runs the gambit, it's political science, psychology, historical religion, they're all just pieces of information at the really deep level of analysis. And it's all about integration. I think there's a huge benefit to getting into a kind of childlike mind state with this. When you're talking to a child from the ages of like 4 to 7, they're very receptive and they're kind of willing to entertain any idea. And with that, you have this dynamic synthesis, and there are brain structures, particularly the right brain, that's designed to look at a bunch of different perspectives and weave them into a coherent meaning. And so when it comes to discernment, the pros of discernment, so to speak, they're not just like, well, this is what the mainstream says and anything that isn't mainstream is a lie. Or this is what this guy said and anything that he says is true and everything else is a lie. Or, that's not how it works. The best way to do it, if you really want to know the truth, is you got to be willing to consider everything, put it all on the table and see how it all lines up. And that's kind of what I want to share tomorrow for my talk. I'm going to try to pack in a lot into this, and I really wanted to emphasize the more philosophic, personal, spiritual experience behind all this.
Tomorrow, I apologize. Yeah,
no worries. So yeah, tomorrow I think it's at I'm East Coast, so it'll be 2:40, I believe, West Coast time. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. And so my point is that there's, the kind of spiritual, personal aspect of all this is, what does this mean to us? What can we do with all this? And how do we use this to grow spiritually? Because as far as I can tell, and I've looked as many places I reasonably can in one lifetime, is there's only one game in town, and that's spiritual growth. And so whether you're coming from the hardcore science perspective, or you're, a religious mystic, or you're somebody who's, walking the fields barefoot, trying to figure out like what the different plants are, it's all data and information that's there to help you grow to your fullest potential. And that requires an openness and a willingness to absorb and receive the truth. And so, I think there's a lot of benefit to looking at all these different perspectives, like I said, with a kind of childlike mind. And, to comment a little bit about the disclosure and, discernment and things like this. I spent several years looking really deeply into secret space program, UFO history, ufology history, the hidden sciences, the secret technology that's been around. And as far as I can tell, it definitely exists. So, it's entirely possible, as Dan suggested, that if a story is being put in the mainstream, that it's because it's servicing an agenda. I can also tell you, because I've studied the history of the powers that be and how they work, that they use media and have been using media for thousands of years to control the way you think through what you believe. And they know more about your psychology than, we do in the mainstream psychology perspective. And if you can get somebody to believe something, or you can filter their beliefs through various methods, you can kind of control the way they think and what they value and how they act. And so it's entirely possible that this is being filtered through a narrative. But at the end of the day, something that I'm reminded of, and it gives me a lot of hope and a kind of positivity, despite whatever's happening, is that the creator is always using everything for the creator's purpose. No matter what the bad guys think they're doing, it's always working in some way for the creator's purpose, even if they think they're getting one over on things. I mean, the fact that the internet exists and we can even have these conversations openly, even on platforms like YouTube of all places, should prove to everybody that, our ability to have voices and share information is something that is very important. And I don't think they can put a lid on it. I actually think that the release of all this information through things like the internet was not something they necessarily anticipated that would have the effect it has. And it's given people a lot more hope and access to truth than they've ever had before. So yeah, hopefully
Right.
that answered a little bit.
Oh yeah. And despite any kind of censorship, it's pop up someplace else. There's no way you can really shut this down, because the willpower connected to spirit and being of service to humanity is always going to find a way, because that passion and drive is so much greater than evil agendas. And that's part of the human potential, is that we have such a greater strength and ability than they do, and can access dimensions that they're not able to. That's why they want to keep us imprisoned in this lower density, because they can't control us in those higher ones that would make up our full multidimensional self, that its guiding principle can be of the higher mind and heart, I guess you could say. So thank you so much, Justin. Can't wait to see your presentation. They're always so incredible. And yeah, going back to, Anil or Aage, do you have any thoughts or anything you want to share?
Yeah, just kind of add this as a comment to what Justin said, and just to kind of second it, is that to me, it's pretty much inevitable that we're evolving in consciousness. And, whether it's just a knowing, or whether it's actually looking at the cycles of times and the cycle of the ages, and the fact that we're on our upturn right now, or just the ability that the fact that we have the technology, the know-how, the intellect to actually create heaven on earth right now, but we're just not. It's not like we are like primitive and we don't know how we can do it. We're just in front of ourselves. We need to step out of our own way, really. And these control mechanisms, these educational institutions are portraying and pushing on us this reality that isn't for the betterment of all humanity. So what would happen if we changed all of those things, and from birth, we're indoctrinated with some truth, or even just the ability to be free and learn in a free manner, rather than all these control mechanisms that are installed onto us, right? So it's inevitable. This is happening. It's just a matter of time. And right now we're at the beginning phases. It's like really beautiful. We're having these conversations right at the beginning of this new evolution, right? It's like these groups of individuals that have like awakened their consciousness to a reality that we can manifest on earth, but isn't quite here yet, are now just coming together to have these conversations so we can have it. So it might seem chaotic and challenging at times, but there's just like an inner knowing in my heart. And I think everybody probably here listening in right now, that we are going to be in this beautiful world and we can create it, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. Even if we know that there's all the craziness happening on, we wouldn't really be here a part of these events if we didn't want to do something about it and create some beauty. So I just wanted to add that to it.
Nice. And because you haven't done your talk yet, and Aage, if you have any thoughts too, but real quick, because we haven't heard you speak yet, do you want to share a little bit about what your presentation is going to be about?
Yeah, are you talking about me?
Justin.
No, go for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to be giving a talk entitled "The Fractal Evolution of Consciousness, the Many Become One Via Choice." And I'm going to talk about how, paraphrasing a little bit here, but basically within you is a kind of epicenter. The main stage of experience is where all of the pieces of information that you gather in your life, whether it's intellectual, emotional, spiritual, social, you name it, it's all coming together in you. And in a lot of ways, the universe was designed kind of specifically for your evolution. That's kind of the beauty of the way, God or the creator works, is that it's an infinite intelligence. It has always existed, is everywhere present, and will always exist. And because of that and many other reasons, everything is evolving for your personal benefit. And when you are open-minded and tap into your divine feminine, because the feminine is receptive and the right hemisphere is all about receptivity and wholeness, then you can absorb all this information, your experience in your life, and represent the outside world within. And that creates divinity. Divinity is the ultimate interconnectedness of all things. And so you as a soul get to use your free will choice to choose that path or not. And we know that the future is uncertain, to speak on that for a second, because free will is real. There's a reason why these technologies can't perfectly predict the future. It's because free will is the chaotic element. If we just had determinism, if we just had perfect expression of law, or a tyrannical kind of creator force that only imposed its will, then your choice wouldn't really matter, because we'd always be heading whatever direction we think that we need to be heading. But free will is real. And because of that, when you make a choice, when we decide to make choices, as we are making them right now, different timelines emerge. Free will is very interconnected to timelines. So I'm going to be talking as much as I reasonably can about all that and trying to frame how powerful your personal experience is within this grand, adventure, as I like to call it, that we're in right now.
Yeah, pretty nauseating rides at times and seasick. Yeah, and I love what you shared, Neil, too, in response to all that. And we can move to Brad, but Aage, any thoughts before we move to Brad again?
Yeah, I want to say that there is inevitable. We will have what we have been screaming on since 1947 or before, disclosure. And the only reason we're getting it now is because they know they cannot keep it secret anymore. There's too much information out there. There is no way. I mean, the bulge on the carpet is getting so big, it's starting to seep out of the edges. There's no way to contain it. And I believe this is going to happen in June or July, most likely July. According to the executive order, it's supposed to happen in June, I think, but I think they're going to drag their feet as long as they can. So it's going to be July. But when it comes up to the executive order, I didn't believe that it was going to be much of a disclosure. But now, since it says all the papers have to be released, I think the whole shittery is going to come out. Maybe some of us will be able to handle all that, but it's going to take maybe a month or two in order to decipher it all, but it is coming. It's coming. And I'm looking forward to that. And because think of it this way also, it's been kind of insinuating to us that this is existing. Like Ben Rich, he said in the late 1978 or so, he was the head of the skunk works at Lockheed. And he said, we have the technology to take ET home, and it will not take a lifetime to do it. And he said also something to the effect that we have whatever you can imagine, we already know how to do. So I have a wild imagination, and that could include both time travel and all kinds of other things. Mm-hmm. And yes, that is coming too. And I'm really looking forward to that. And I was looking in the chat here, and I see we may have a flat earther in there. And I just want to make a quick comment on that. Ask any astral traveler if we have a ball or a flat earth, and they're going to tell you, yeah, it's round, because I've seen it. And I don't know if Tony want to comment on this because it's so controversial. Flat earth has become more like a religion than anything else. And, the concept of don't confuse me with the facts because my mind is made up. So I don't know. You've probably seen it from the outside as well. So
they're all globes. The physics work with what we have with the standard science. People, they do I've tuned in and watched a couple flat earth videos, and they do it's like an infomercial on steroids to talk you into believing that the earth is flat. It's a disinfo campaign by very, very advanced media people for some agenda. So in the old days, they created flat earth so that people would quit trying to sail to where they were getting, governments were sailing across the ocean and getting goods and materials and then making a fortune with them. So they told everybody else the world was flat to limit the competition. They're doing the same thing now to try to discredit us, the people that are talking about the space program and things that are going on in space. They're doing that. My request to anybody that has to, because it's confusing, and I don't blame anybody. I don't look at somebody and go, man, you're an idiot because you believe that. I don't say that because I don't blame anybody for having an open mind. Everybody that's a flat earther knows that something's wrong with the official story. And so they're looking for something else elsewhere. And the flat earth videos really do an awesome job of selling it. But the thing I want to say is this: join an astronomy club in your local area, get a small telescope, get into astronomy. It disproves all of flat earth all day long. The sunrise in the Eastern time and the sunset in Western time is something you can confirm on the phone. There are flights, there are boats that go out over the horizon. You can prove it yourself. You don't need me to tell you. You don't need a satellite to tell you. The other thing is, if it's flat and there's an edge, where's my pictures? I'll believe it as soon as you show me a picture of that big edge of all the water falling off the edge of the earth. I'll entertain it. I'll subscribe to your YouTube channel if you can show me a picture. Because I'll tell you right now, I can go get you a picture from the space station looking down at the round earth flying over it at 18,000 miles an hour all day long. So if there's all these millions of minutes of footage of the earth being round from high altitude things, there's not one picture of a flat edge. So I would tell you to do that and just get into astronomy. Your life will be richer. You can prove it for yourself. You don't need me to tell you. You don't need anybody to tell you. And you should really be pissed off at what they're doing at the YouTube channel that sold you this lie.
It's unbelievable psyops. And Brad, yeah, your thoughts on that, and then just kind of want to. Oh, and Dan too. So why don't we go around and finish with that, and then we'll move to the next question. So Brad, and then Dan, what are your thoughts?
Well, just from an earth science perspective, I have been around the world at the equatorial regions, traveling in one direction, and I ended up in the same place I started. I've also been up to within a couple degrees of the Arctic Circle in Trondheim, Norway. And on my trip to Antarctica, I made it to within 1 degree of the Antarctic Circle. So I've been top and bottom and all the way around. And as Tony says, all signs point to a globe. Now, it may not be a perfectly round globe, as we know at the equatorial regions, it bulges out a little bit, so more of an ellipse. But I can tell you that there is no such thing as the ice wall, supposedly, down in Antarctica. Those are just ice shelves, and they calve and they break off. And we saw giant icebergs, boy, the size of 30-story buildings on the way down there. So generally, I don't even entertain the flat earth questions anymore. It's just ridiculous to me. It's a psyops. It's a way that keeps us divided and an enormous waste of time. So yeah, I'll just say, from someone who has traveled the earth and been to all 7 continents, it's round.
Yeah,
it is.
First-hand experience, absolutely. Yeah, you know, the CIA has been having ongoing programs to see how easily the people can be fooled. You know,
Exactly.
going all the way back to the Space Brothers from Venus, were, as we know, were Nazi craft, and this is just, you know, psychological operations in order to see what percentage of the public would buy it. Very clever, but no cigar.
Mm-hmm.
So I call it Planet Mindfuck. Excuse the language.
I like to say that what we should be talking about is the fact that this physical reality isn't what we think it is, and everything is made of subatomic particles vibrating in and out of reality, and Newtonian physics doesn't match subatomic world. So we've just pierced through the illusion, and now what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the conversation that I think we're going to start having now.
But then there's
We are.
having strong intent and willpower and being able to create, you know, one's reality, you know, but there's some laws that you can't really break, I would say, but we do have the ability to manifest all sorts of things or hold a consistent belief that we can end up manifesting. But if it's not aligned with the truth frequency, it'll probably expire eventually, or a person will allow that to shed away because it doesn't serve them anymore as they get closer and closer to the real truth, perhaps. I don't know. Or am I just kind of...
Yeah, that's what we're going to get deeply into
Yes.
tomorrow on my talk there, when we talk about how the universe works and what makes it ticks and what it looks like from both sides of the quantum existence. And I think that's in the, Neil, could you, on the schedule tomorrow, it's a little after, what is it, 2:00 in the afternoon Pacific that I'm speaking, or?
You're on at 1:30 Pacific tomorrow.
1:30 Pacific, okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
pose a question starting with, well, maybe with Brad if he has to leave early, but you know, and for anybody, you know, after. So people are just wondering about one's capacity to shift timelines, if there's really underground alien wars going on, you know, that they're, you know, taking out underground bases and rescuing children. So there's sort of that. Let's start with, you know, kind of like our ability to shift our timeline. What would you say, Brad, would be one of the main bullet points or pointers from your book, How to Escape Prison Planet? What would you say maybe the top 3 that are kind of coming to you right now to assist people? Because if we can shift timelines, it would involve, if it was a positive shift, escaping prison planet, right? So any any kind of pointers or thoughts since you've written that awesome book?
Oh, we'd be out of here as soon as we can. A lot of people get trapped here in Earth. I think all of us have come down knowing that this is going to be a very, very difficult mission. I just saw a blurb recently from Dolores Cannon, who did a lot of past life regression stuff. And she was saying that this is one of the toughest assignments, that people that volunteer to be here at this time during this great transition. This is the Great Awakening. There's really been nothing like this in terms of consciousness on this planet that has been seen. We've gotten very close several times to a global enlightenment type of moment. The last was all the way back to the ancient Greeks, but they then fell into warfare, and things prevented them from having this light bulb moment, or the 100th monkey effect, where it's now getting very close. We're so close. And that is why you see this stark reality so in your face, that they're putting everything out there to prevent us from doing it. Any way they can keep us separated, divided, arguing amongst ourselves, debating stupid things like the flat earth, to keep us from ascending. And the ascension is the true escape from prison planet. And it's really an individual quest. I'd say everybody's on their own trajectory here. And the people who have the ability, the channelers or the light workers I see in the chat room, are on the very leading edge, the tip of the spear, so to speak. And those will be the people and researchers like your panel here. And what I put out in my book, Beyond Esoteric, Escaping Prison Planet, to give people the blueprints or the signposts along the way, to allow them to make the decision for themselves. As I heard earlier in the conference, that we are all powered by our own free will. And we see that right now so stark, the choice we can make to either take that experimental jab or not. It's on our free will to do it. And so the lines are being drawn right now. And I see this same amount of people who are doing it are the ones who are the most skeptical of a lot of the information that's being presented here. The people who are saying, not for me, I'm going to take my chances with my immune system for something that has a 99.7% cure rate. I think I'm pretty good at that. Those are the people who are going to be the first to ascend and really start to embrace this whole model of entering 5D. And that is where we're going. We're going to just jump right over 4D, which is more of the demonic realm, and where the reptoids and some of the gray ETs, where they dwell, and not really a place where more enlightened people want to go. And I know you know a lot about this, Laura, that when you get to that plane, it's just going to be an innate ability. It's just going to be something that you just know what to do. And I look forward to going there with you guys. It's good. It's a what a lifetime it's been, and boy, it's really heating up now. And I agree with you, Dan. We're coming into June and July. It's just going to be boom, 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 and we are going to get such disclosure. Not that any of us need any convincing, right? We've been watching the drip, drip, drip of disclosure, but right now the cracks are forming in the dam, and it's just going to go boom, wide open. So there we go.
Great answer.
One of the technologies, just to talk about that disclosure, that was in the sun. Like, you know how they're listing some technologies that they're finding, right? So the disclosures started happening in January. They already released a few, but they're going to release much more in June or July. But one of them says that they found, it was like the last sentence in the sun, right? After they spoke about that, the memory metal, right? So the last thing was, and a technology that bends space-time and is faster than light. The last sentence in the article. You know, and so we are already speaking about declassified information, and that rabbit hole goes so incredibly deep that, just like Aage said, at this point, like, what isn't real? Like, this is just, what else is there, right? But when this all comes out, and if we get the opportunity to really look at what technologies they have, I think even some of us in the know are going to have mind-blowing experiences because it really does go deep.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything to share about the question? And if not that direct question, some people are curious about what's going on in the underground bases and if there's kind of like, I guess, a war going on to take out the underground bases and to rescue the children. Anybody want to speak on that? Or the initial question about escaping Prison Planet, any thoughts? Just put your hand up if you want to share anything. So we can move to another question. I don't know if Neil or Aage have found one that you want to grab, or if you have one, we can, I don't know
Yeah,
if
I saw in the chat there was a question from Lise about is there a way to change a timeline? And yes, there
that was sort of the initial question to Brad. So, but because I asked like 3 questions in one, because I'm really good at doing that, we could go back to that, see if anybody has anything to share about shifting timelines.
there is a way to do it. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow, because there's a process for that. Though, if you go back into the past and lock onto a period of time and concentrate on that, stay with that and create a new timeline with a new vision of the future, except for the one you had, and then you follow down that one, chances are that you may find yourself in a different timeline, but also you may not remember the first one. So you really may not know. But I'm going to show you some pictures that is possible to know both timelines. So we'll look at that tomorrow.
Sweet. I mean, this is what's so great about this conference, the diversity of information and how it is very complementary and synergistic with one another. I mean, this is like going to walk away with, I don't think we're leaving any stone unturned.
Very, very wide range of information.
Yeah. So anything jumping out as far as?
Well, let me ask this question to Brad. I don't know if you asked him already. It's in the Q&A, but Rita is asking, do you think giants were ETs?
Yeah, no, we covered that.
You already covered that? Okay, I didn't hear that answer.
Yeah, it was at the end, and we kind of made it a quick one because the other one, but so yeah, so we can, you guys can always do replay if you missed that. I was at the very end of what he was answering with the first question. And yeah, so we're kind of scrolling and seeing if any, questions jump out, but there's plenty of questions amongst us to ask in all of this. I mean, what do you think of the some of the fractures in the disclosure community and how some people are feeling very, very frustrated with maybe feeling led on, or they're being given dates. This is going to happen on this date or that date, and it doesn't happen. And just some of the plants, we don't have to name names, and just, how it's created such a level of confusion where sometimes people don't know who's who, or who to trust. And this is what's so important about advancing human potential, because we want to have a well-functioning intuition. We want to be able to access our higher guidance instead of just be completely confused and easily played. Anything you want to share about what you've seen or what revelations, kind of witnessing it or going through it, or what you've seen others maybe do that was an excellent approach to still holding the unity and not dropping into what they wanted, which is a more divide and conquer. I mean, just any thoughts on kind of what we've all been through? I don't know if that's a good question. If not, we can go to another one, but what do you guys think? Is that okay?
Anybody want to answer that?
Yeah, and we'll keep that one short. It's just, I know it's a big deal to.
Well, can I say something? I'd like to say something.
Yeah.
I'd like to address that. So again, it kind of fell into my lap that I deal with people that have similar experiences, or people that have contactees. They reach out. You're always looking for somebody to talk to. So if something happens to you, you wake up with an ET in your room, you want to talk to somebody that knows something about it. And it fell into my lap because I went public with it. So people have contacted me, and what I found was, I didn't get that far in my talk, but I'm able to group everybody into one of 3 categories, and they're all kind of all over the place. I found that many people that get contact are in one category, and that's a human space program. So the United States military, the Canadian military, the European military, some sort of human-based program takes them, and then they go and interact in space. Another one is well, I call it the Draco category. Basically, these are people that are being taken by a reptilian race or a conglomerate of many races under a guide, the guide of being guided by a reptilian race. And those are typically torturous. Those are people that get very badly abused. And that is an entire category in itself. And the third category is to address your question, Laura, and I think is relevant, is everybody else. And what I found is that outside of the United States, people in Australia and in Europe and other places, South America, they tend to get contacted by different types of ETs at different levels of technology. So I think one fallacy, one thing that we've been programmed to believe is that there's only one other or two. There's just the Pleiadians as the good guys and the reptiles are the bad guys, and that's it. And that's not the case. I believe that we're being visited from from advanced species from many different galaxies, from many different billions, trillions even of stars of different systems, and they blow through our system and pop in and interact with people, and they have different levels of technology. So some of them have a machine, a doohickey, and some of them are doing it completely mentally, and because they're on different levels of technology. And as a result, when you look at the data on our end, it doesn't match up. There's so many accounts that don't make sense. So everybody in the community is the community. The very first thing I ever was told about going into ufology in the beginning when I was being researched is that it's a very highly fragmented community. And the reason being is because we're not being interacted by the same people, it's not the same folks that are interacting with us from above. They're from all over the place with just as many reasons to interact with us and just as many levels of technology. Some of them are very advanced and some of them are slightly advanced. And so the community, there's a lot of infighting as a result because my ET is better than your ET kind of thing. There's a lot of that. My guys are great to me. There was a girl that I worked with for a long time who thought that she had the most loving, caring ETs that took her and did everything. And the more I got out of her, the more I realized they made her believe that because they were doing very bad things to her. And so she was brainwashed into believing it was a positive experience when it was really not. So they are people just like we are. And if you come outside the concert, you can get sold a great deal on tickets, or you can get ripped off because they are people just like us up there. And the universe, the cosmos is far more densely populated than any of us have been led to believe, way on to orders of magnitude more of all spacefaring species. So I think that's the problem with the community is that all of our interaction are not coming from the same source. In fact, they're coming from millions of different sources.
Right. And so if we look at like the prime directive of ETs, I mean, there's many competing agendas that step down into the human sphere, which is why it's been so hard to integrate these fragments, would you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then you got to think if there is a directive where they can't interact with us, that would mean that only criminals do.
Uh-huh.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah.
So if there is a treaty in place that says advanced species cannot come down here and interact with us, as
Only
we've
the
been told.
non-advanced.
Right. So only a certain amount of species can come down here, and they're not to interact with us in any way, shape, or form because there's a treaty. That would mean that the species that do come down here and interact with us are breaking the law. They are criminals. So everybody that gets interacted with is basically from an extraterrestrial race is being involved from a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. So
It
I mean,
does.
yeah, it draws into question if there's a treaty that says we're to be left alone, and we're clearly not being left alone.
Yeah.
Then that means whoever's interacting with us is breaking the law along the way. They're maybe for a good reason, maybe not. But
For sure.
there are just as many reasons as there are cases that get studied to be taken.
Okay. Well, thanks for that.
I feel like I created more questions than I answered.
Oh, no.
No,
Well,
no, you did. We could just talk about that forever because there's even information about like people believe that the more evolved in consciousness you are as a being, the less likely you want to interfere with free will, because the more you see the grand design, which goes back to what Justin says about both sides are playing basically for the same side, giving us these experiences that we signed up for. So the more evolution, more evolved you are, the less you're going to want to interfere with the drama in these other dimensions that are meant to happen the way they're supposed to happen, right? The less advanced you are, the more likely you are wanting to go down there and manipulate it, right?
Mhm.
So that kind of creates a negative feedback loop, basically.
Wouldn't you say that that keeps us sort of in a duality and sort of a battle amongst each other that hasn't reached sort of a more evolved place of neutrality, peace, and the ability to harmonize our diversity and differences? You know, it's kind of in the ego realm of I'm right, you're wrong, or I mean, it's crazy the level of division when we think about the unified field and the higher states of consciousness. Yeah, don't have to engage, don't need to engage, or get caught up in being harvested or having to battle, I guess. Is that kind of what you are saying, Neil?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm basically seconding what Tony's saying, but yeah, if it's like I feel that, for lack of a better explanation, this dimension has been set up to have these experiences. You know, like just the way everything is structured just perpetuates more of these experiences that we've had of darkness. But it's secular now. That part of it's over, but it has been kind of like a downward spiral of fractalizing, like fragmented consciousness, that we are now in the depths of duality and this whole separation mentality. And we're basically at a critical mass right now. The only way we can really move forward now is to come together as one, but with all this information that we've learned from this experience of duality.
Yeah, and that builds some serious spiritual muscles. We're here for soul and spiritual development. Once we overcome all this kind of stuff, it's going to be pretty rock solid and hard to lose again. And that to me is an awakening that's going to endure. Any thoughts from the rest of the panelists before we move to the next?
Just imagine, here it is, year 2021. If your great grandfather, Laura, you know, in 1954 in May, if he had his planned disclosure and it wasn't interfered with, the world, how it would have been so incredibly different today. Just imagine, you know, we've been in this bubble reality where we've had this planet that's been technologically hijacked. We're using these crude, primitive technologies, and the whole world could have been transformed if it wasn't for this deep state cabal, whatever you want to call it. You know, it's been orchestrating the deceptions all these decades.
Yeah, and just not knowing who's who, and realizing that the people that you were kind of counting on were a part of it, that acted like they were allies, that scapegoated and, you know, placed the blame. I mean, the manipulation is so unbelievable, and the trickery, and it's so hard in a position like that, or any leadership position, when you're a benevolent person, because you're targeted, you got the weight of the world, you got all these pressures on you, and it's really hard to just go into the zone and have the full picture of intuition, especially not even knowing if some who appear positive as ETs are actually really positive. And so it takes a lot to be able to, you know who's who. There's a lot of imposters. They have technology that can make a reptilian look like a benevolent, like Nordic or Palladian, right, Tony? So they're able to really cloak themselves in that way. So moving to kind of shifting gears a little bit, and I don't know who wants to go first. Maybe you, Justin, because you haven't spoken in a while, and anybody else after that who has some words on it. Because one of the main questions when you open up the registration page is, what will it take to be the sovereign beings we are meant to be? I mean, I think everybody's going to tune into maybe that one download or epiphany that stands out the strongest, that maybe you can share. What will it take? Or at least what's the first step, or one of the most inspiring thing that stands out to you on the quest to truly be sovereign? I believe a lot of us already are, but you kind of know what I mean, right? We're not totally, though. We keep waking up here, but I mean, we're in service.
Right. Yeah. Well, man, so much to share there. I'd say, to your point, Laura, we are already sovereign. We have free will, unquestionably. It's way more powerful than we've been led to believe. But an analogy I always like to come back to is the kind of child and adult, the analogy, which is that it's a power that needs to be learned how to use correctly. And with sovereignty, with the ability to have the choice to do almost anything, how are you going to use that power without accidentally hurting somebody or yourself? And that's what the game of life is all about in a lot of ways. Like, I'd say one of the things that seems to be a pretty common trend throughout all of the various dimensions of consciousness or densities or whatever term you want to use is that there's a growth process. It's that you're here to learn, gain knowledge, gain awareness, gain wisdom, so that you can use your free will in a way that doesn't hurt somebody and creates harmony and order and abundance instead of accidental destruction. And, so there's a really good sources to choose from for that. I think the true sources of law in the planet, like universal law, sovereign law, all sorts of things like this, conceptual law, they spell it out pretty clearly at least at a general blueprint level. And then you have to do that in your own life with what matters to you. So, as a really good example of this, if you look at how Earth life was created, even if we just assume that the mainstream narrative is correct, just for demonstration purposes, we had molecules and atoms slowly coming together across time to create, basic building blocks of life, like amino acids and proteins. And then those came together to form RNA, DNA, and the unicellular life form that we have. And that happened over the course of about 1.5 billion years. And then for about another 1 billion years, there was a slow evolution of unicellular life into multicellular life. And then at around the time of the Cambrian explosion, which is about 600 million years ago, out of nowhere, there's this massive explosion of macroscopic life forms that are bigger than, slime, basically, that covered the Earth. And then that slowly evolved to the point where you have plants, animals, this beautiful symphony of ecosystem that we have. And those plants and animals slowly came together to form life that was coherent and complex enough so that another being could indwell that, which is what we have, free will and a conscious mind that's able to do that. So there's this progression. And so what's happening right now is that we as human beings are learning how to use our sovereignty, but it's kind of like in the sandbox. It's in a way that it's powerful, don't get me wrong, but it's not so powerful that if we visualize the Earth cracking in two, we could do it if we wanted to. So what I think we're learning right now is how do we engage with each other in a way that creates maximum sovereignty, freedom. And the only way to do that is so that my rights, when they're honored, also honor your rights. And we have these things called rights that you can't actually identify and know what they are. And if we all willingly submit our will to them using a system of law that makes sure everybody else's rights are honored, then we create a golden age. I mean, and the ultimate expression of that, something I like to use as an illustration is, the Star Trek Age. What if everybody committed themselves to the advancement of knowledge and the abundance of all life, and we all dedicated ourselves to that? Not only would it be satisfying all of our respective survival needs, but we'd create an age of splendor and brilliance that we can't even imagine, to the extent that nobody would want to run around being greedy and trying to enslave anybody anymore, because it'd be boring. And we could create like an absolutely amazing life. So to me, that's kind of like an overall view of what sovereignty has as a potential.
So articulate. Very cool. So if everybody else wants to answer that question, we could go maybe Brad, Dan, and then Tony, if that works for you guys. Brad, how would you answer that question? What kind of comes to mind when you just think about what will it take for us to be, the sovereign beings we are meant to be?
Well, and that goes along the lines of what Prison Planet's all about and how then we escape. It's really a soul journey. It's an individual expression about what we do in our lives. Are we just wanting to make money and buy a bunch of toys, and that's what many people think it's all about? Or are we here in service to others? Are we here to extend ourselves as best we can to help educate and inform and do what we can to help bring everybody up? And these are the laws of consistency that many people who have channeled ET civilizations talk about, that when you have a fully transparent civilization, that every generation builds upon all that has been known, because there's no holding back on anything. And the new generation is always going to be the smartest and the most advanced. So we have to get beyond that in this world we live in. And Dan, as you know, coming out of the programs, and you too, Tony, that everything is very compartmentalized. Everything has been hoarded, and from technology to who we are to even the giants and many of the earth mysteries. This has to end. We have to become a fully transparent society. And I think when that begins in earnest, we will then be reaching this golden age. And that's a very big part of the Great Awakening. And that's what I hope we can all still see in our lifetimes. I think we're so close. We're really on the cusp here. And it's great to speak with so many people like y'all and get different insights on this perspective, because I do believe it's coming real soon, and it's going to be the greatest show in the universe. And it's probably why we get so much attention from other ET species right now, just watching to see what us humans on the ground crew here are doing and how we're going to proceed with this Great Awakening. So I'm really looking forward to things. But guys, unfortunately, I do have to step out. I have a 4:30 engagement in about 5 minutes.
I'm so glad we got you in to answer that. What a wonderful answer, and what an incredible presentation. Thank you so much, Brad, for your participation, and we'll be in touch. Much love to you.
Much love to you guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Take care.
Okay, Dan and Tony, any thoughts on that? Dan, of what will it take? What is the most inspiring thing that kind of comes through you in regards to what does it take to be sovereign?
Well, each one of us wants to feel like we're doing something that is going to benefit humanity, something that's going to improve life. And, when the public realizes, these people are not making up science fiction like stories, that there's a reality here, and that there's the implications of disclosing what's been hidden for so many decades and how it can transform every aspect of life to eliminate so much. There's just way too much suffering on this planet. It doesn't need to have this much suffering. We could alleviate this, but only because of being bamboozled, I guess that's the word of the month. That this perpetuates decade after decade after decade, and I think just the fact that we're talking about it, and more people are talking about it and thinking about it, it is reaching the fractal morphogenic holographic mind that we're all connected to, the collective consciousness. It's reaching out. I think that more people, even the people watching CNN, MSNBC, reading New York Times, at some point there is going to be a glitch in that reality. And as soon as I start to follow that glitch and see, well, why did they lie to me about that? And then they find out, oh, well, they lied about this too. And then all of a sudden the floodgates open up. And then there's this critical mass that's going to happen that will be like a tidal wave that will cover the earth of awakening. And we no longer will no longer accept this as the reality and demand the truth.
Absolutely, totally. Great answer. I actually had a dream last night that I was in the ocean. I have a lot of ocean dreams, and huge waves in the distance of fire and like blood. Like it was like mother energy, just like, and her emotional just force, with like divine rate. I mean, it was crazy. And I was just kind of like, whoa. And then this huge, anyway, I won't get into it, but, and then I just remember lying back and one was about to crash. And I just let myself, kind of when you surf and you hit a wave and you're just like, okay, I'm either going to die or I'm just going to like roll with it. Then I woke up. But anyway, really powerful.
And remember the power of love. It is like in the experiments with Dr. Marcel Vogel, like I mentioned, the love, not use the word trumps, but the love, it it's structures and patterns where hate and fear and everything that's on the other side of that doesn't have that power. Love has this power because it is a fundamental matrix of the universe.
Totally. That's why we are in pain when, there's insults. I mean, we feel a constriction, that we can breathe through and get over it, but it's amazing how much negative energy, it literally makes me ill. I mean, not like ill, but like I feel it in my body. I'm sure everybody can relate. The vibration of just judgments and unsolicited criticisms that are just way off. Some is, fine, but some isn't. And how the vibration of love just shifts us into a feeling of bliss and peace and calm and safety and connection. And we have a choice what frequency we want to carry. Our words can injure others, or they can activate a transformation or healing. And if we can speak to the soul of one another instead of the programmings, and not create this sort of sheeple divide, we can connect with all sorts of people, realizing that just because they haven't been down the rabbit hole doesn't mean that they're that different from us, because of that binding force of love and respect and integrity, and having things in common, like caring about our families, caring about the planet. The rest of it, we're going to connect dots. And when we look at like astrology, some people have more earth, some people have more of the multidimensional, but if we all can get along, we each have a gift to give each other. Anyway, I just wanted to add that. And we'll just, some people are just plain difficult, and that's why boundaries are good. But so Tony, what are your thoughts about that question? What will it take for us to be sovereign? However that kind of resonates with you. What will it take for us to be the sovereign beings we're meant to be?
That is a great question. When you look at society, and like I'm in America, we're everybody here, as far as I know, is in the United States. So we're at a level of society here. And when you look at America around us, people are all over the map. There are people that are very, very noble. I call it very moral. And there are people that are very primitive and very unmoral. And they're all over the map here. And I take this analogy. If you're a young basketball player, you have a role model to aspire to. You know that even though you're only 5'5", you're going to grow and be taller, and you want to aspire to be able to slam dunk. You want to be able to do certain things within the rule set. So you have a goal to aspire to. Spiritually, our goals have been smeared. So we had Buddha and Jesus. Our spiritual goals of personal growth and sovereignty have been destroyed or just not given to us. We are unaware of more advanced beings that are out there. There are beings out there that are highly advanced mentally, that can do things with just their mind, and they can manifest things, and they've chosen their path. They do their thing. Both paths are legitimate, but eventually it ends up all being the same thing, which is service to others. Eventually there's a certain level where we're talking about slavery. It's self-defeating. Slavery is very self-defeating, and over time, very more costly. It's a shortcut that is too expensive over the course of time for any civilization to keep it for a long time. It just is. I talked earlier today with somebody about it, and it's like a chess game. In a chess game, the most powerful player on the board is the pawn, because there are many of them, and they can all become a queen. So if you enslave all your pawns, you're going to be outnumbered by queens by the opponent. So the most powerful thing is that person that is undeveloped, because they can develop into something unexpected and great, and contribute to the whole. We've been cut off from our knowledge of advanced races and what they do, and that data. We've been cut off from that. We think that we're the height of the food chain, and we are not. There is much for us to aspire to that would just naturally lead to our sovereignty developing, just by knowing that they exist, just by knowing that there are beings out there that can turn an apple into a banana. You know what I mean? Mentally, if we knew that that was a state of mind, that not just some kind of parlor trick. If we knew that there were beings out there that were very advanced and very moral, and how they lived and what they were doing, we just had that knowledge of something to aspire to, given to us, which has been deliberately taken from us. We would have, the people that are chasing shortcuts and victimizing people just for temporary gains would abandon all that. They would get on board, and it would make sense to be on the team of development, of spiritual development, when you could see that there's a being out there that can slam dunk spiritually. You would want to learn that. You would aspire to that. Right now we don't have aspiration. We don't have a role model. They've been hidden from us. Believe me, the people in the programs have aspiration spiritually, and they're going after it a lot, and they've been at it a long time. They've hidden that. That is the occulted information. They've hidden it from us because they know that they can reincarnate or whatever they can do. They know they aspire to be greater, and they're doing it while holding us down. So when all of us are on the same page of aspiration to be a greater being, a more sovereign being, you're going to see an order of magnitude of change around the world quickly.
Wow. Gosh, yeah. I mean, without the devotion, without the inspiration or commitment to that, or I don't know.
Yeah, people are just kind of wandering. People are just kind of mucking about through their growth. You get what I'm saying? People are just, they don't know. Should I be kind? Should I not? It's a confusing thing. Should I just take everything I should and be worry about being rich? Should I just take from these people that are less fortunate for me, or should I help them? People don't know because the role model isn't there. And the role models that are there, that have been provided, have been defamed. They've been confused. You get what I'm saying? Like that, once there's a post-disclosure and we have access to data of how other species actually live, we're going to be shocked for one, but we're going to have something to look forward to. We're going to have things in other species to look forward to. Everything that we've become accustomed to has happened on other planets already. So by looking at other planets that are in the future that are more developed than us, we are going to know what to expect and what we should get after and what we should abandon.
Right, which we discover within ourselves. And that's what I love about what you share, because if we don't have the role models, I've discovered that, nature ends up being the teacher, our life experience ends up being the teacher, the dark night of the soul, and being in that like awkward, uncomfortable place of not really, knowing what's going on, but being willing to just look at how the unconscious operates in order to shine light on the unconscious so that we can recognize we're actually multidimensional and there's so much more than we can imagine. Sometimes it takes adversity to push us in that direction, and adversity doesn't have to be, a feeling of misfortune or a curse. I find all my adversities have brought about greater blessings than anything. They've been the teachers, and without having role models, it's like, you know what I mean? And it's very much a quest that we have to take upon ourselves when we look at the examples in our society that are holding facades or letting us down or connected to some level of betrayal, or it's not in, the right energetic. And
I think there's a little bit of sleight of hand. There's a little bit of, here, look over here. This is what you should be. Don't look at this. And I think there's a little bit of that. And a lot of people, your adversity is pushing you away from that. Right? Like your adversity, what you're supposed to do, the nuclear family with the mansion and the Ferrari is over here. But your adversity teaches you that that's not what's going to make you happy. That's the only thing I've learned from it. Believe me, I've lost everything many times. I've had a rough go of things in my life. And that lesson that I learned was to just quit chasing that carrot. And it made me happy all of a sudden. And I think that that's kind of along those lines, that we just don't have the other thing that look at. They've hidden it. They've literally hidden your core, you know what I'm saying? Your inner core, your inner growth. They've hidden all that, on a huge level from people, and everybody's finding it on their own, right? But if we were all on the same page right out of the gate, if they were teaching you this in grade school, right, and at a young age in preschool, if they were sitting you down saying, your purpose is to grow and be happy, instead of your purpose is to be here on time and solve this problem. If there was something of that, if we had aspiration, if they said, look at these ETs, look at this race, this is the so-and-so race, and they can do this, and you guys can too, if you learn to deal with your fears and let go of that and learn to work together in a loving way. If you can embrace the love of yourself as well as everyone else, if you can learn to love yourself. Instead, it's like kids at a young age are learning shame. You're late. You shouldn't be here. Oh, you got that wrong. You're not smart. Oh, you're not wearing that dress. That's not expensive enough. You're ugly. Kids are learning that. That's the takeaway. That's their adversity they're learning. They're getting run around on a treadmill, and we all did. We all did. And so that's what's going to happen. Some of that's going to have to disappear after a disclosure. And if they feed you more of it, you know it's false, right?
Wow.
Wow.
An upgrade in programming. We need to be upgraded.
Yes, exactly. We need to be on the same page in something that's going to include spiritual growth as well as growth in our life.
And learning from each other's uniqueness instead of fitting into a model. And yeah, we know that how messed up the system is. I love what you said, Aage, yesterday, that you're so out of the box, you can't see the box anymore. But I want to hand it over to, thank you, Tony, for that. You and Aage and Neil, any questions or thoughts coming up? I know we're kind of coming to a close here. We can kind of go around but I just want to give you guys, because I know you have great
Aage,
questions.
you wanna go first, Aage?
Yeah, that'll be fine. I just want to make a quick comment on what Tony just said. What he explained, what we can expect after disclosure, that is the second biggest reason why we haven't had disclosure, because they sure doesn't want that. Because if we find out who we are and what our capabilities are, they will lose control, and they know it. Absolutely. And speaking to the sovereignty part of it, sovereignty starts in the mind. In ancient days, the word for mind and heart were the same word. So yes, it starts in the heart, and that's hardwired to the pituitary, and that's the two-way communication going on all the time. Pituitary has the gate to universal consciousness. So yes, once we figure out who we are and what our capabilities are, their game is over. We have sovereignty. We are sovereign now, but most people doesn't know it. And once we know it, their game is over.
Totally.
We're it.
Neil, any thoughts on the sovereignty question? And then
Yes.
either one of you have a next question?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on it, and just to unpack this a bit. And then at the end of my answer to this, if I can do a poem that's about reclaiming sovereignty, that'd be pretty cool. So I'll probably do that. So, okay, when we talk about, first I want to say in regards to the whole UFO disclosure and the threat approach, when you look at interviews with, Pentagon officials and many other officials, even people that are on like the Senate committees that is behind, this COVID relief bill that is related to UFOs, the question has been asked many times, is there any evidence that they're a threat? And every time it comes back, no, there is no evidence that there's a threat. So that just that they're putting that out there, and the fact that even they are saying there's no evidence, but the reason why, there's multiple reasons, and true, probably a transcending agenda. But one of them would be the fact that a lot of these craft are found over nuclear sites. And because they're watching us to make sure that we're not going to destroy ourselves or others. And some say even nuclear energy can affect other dimensions, right? By splitting the atom. So it affects these other beings. So that to me looks like probably the reason why they are looking at it as a threat. But there could be an agenda on top of that that's a nefarious agenda that, not all of us are even aware of. But I just wanted to comment and just add that in there, that there is no evidence. And I've been looking into it and spending at least 2-3 hours a week now for the last few months going through these documents and looking at interviews. And there is no evidence that it's a threat. So this goes into what we're all talking about here. What can we learn from this? Not only these beings, but the technology, and then also who are they, and are they connected to our ancestry, which is what this whole conference, one of the themes is, our galactic heritage, right? Are we connected to these beings on some intergalactic level that transcends the earthly timeline? And so that's my 2 cents on that. But I do want to answer the question about reclaiming sovereignty, because it's really about that you can unpack that on multiple levels. There's the macro level, right? Well, what do we have to do as a collective humanity in order to transcend these challenges of this dimension so that we can truly be empowered? And then there's the micro level, all the little things that we can change, right? Like changing, for example, the type of food that we eat in order to better serve ourselves, changing the educational system, the practical steps that need to be taken. But what I've from doing these events for so long, I feel that the energy of inclusion, right, is what we have for us. That is just like a vibration that is just transcends the energy of exclusion. These elite, these people, these beings, whether they're, part of the divine plan, whatever you want to look at it as, the energy that they have is the energy of exclusion, that there's this secret awareness and knowledge that they have society, they have technology, they have this sacred geometry technology, you know, whatever it could be. And that energy is not going to be as powerful as the energy of inclusion when we all come together with the real cosmic truth of who we are, you know, and how ancient our soul lineage is, and what, you know, what our true potential is. So that energy for sure. And then also cooperation over competition, right? There's this fake competition that's been created all over the world. And it's also believed by some people that we won't have progression without specific certain types of competition. But I think if we could come together, put certain things aside as humanity and start cooperating more and more on projects, we can progress so much more than we are now. And it's a great example is politics. It seems like we can't even progress because there's so much division that we just keep, like, one person just wants to cancel the other person. It just keeps going on like that. But we have this fake idea of progression because of how advanced technologically we are, right? So, but it's the technology that's progressing, but because we aren't, like, our ideology isn't progressing, we have this advanced technology and we're arrogant about it, but our consciousness is staying stagnant. So it's like, what do we have to do in order to get our consciousness to this next level? And really, we can probably talk about this for hours and come up with all types of modalities, but the ultimate thing is that there are billions of people on the planet. What works for some person or another person may not work for another person or a group. But I feel that healing the amnesia basically is the bottom line of it all. Healing the amnesia and the forgetfulness of not only our divine nature, our ancient history, extraterrestrials, past lives, lives on other planets. How do we do that? And part of that would be healing the collective trauma that we've incurred, not only in this life, but in past lives. You know, just from, you know, I can list off right now 100 different things that happened to me as a child that affected my ability to be fully empowered right now. But I also know what ways would have been better to harmonize my timelines for me to be fully empowered in this moment. So, as I said earlier today, we have the information, we have the know-how, we have the books, we have the individuals doing the research on what can assist us, but it's just hasn't been out there yet. And one thing that I'm really hopeful for is, you know, the implementation of psychedelics into mainstream society now, in order to, because they couldn't deny it for so long, like they denied it for so long, but now you cannot deny it anymore because the results are in. Just the assistance for people to not only get over PTSD and other mental issues, but not just PTSD from, like, war and being a vet, but PTSD from being abused as a child, right? So we're able to have these tools now, these modalities that we're seeing seep into mainstream world. And to me, even though we might see craziness right now, just the fact that we're in that moment, that we're seeing the beginning phases of a complete shift, right? What's going to happen in 10 years from now? You know, in Canada, the first company that's doing over-the-counter microdose mushrooms for people that suffer from certain PTSDs started last year, right? And this is just one modality. So what's going to happen in 10 years from now, as this keeps coming out more and more and more, is going to be a restructuring of society. Couple that with the disclosure that is occurring as well, and people understanding that we've been lied to for so long. There may be a lot of people confused in the first, like, you know, however long. There might be people very angry, but soon, and that's why we're here. That's why, like, we're on this panel. That's why everybody's watching this right now, is when that happens, we are basically we have the ability to go out there and spread more of this information and teach everybody this information that we've been in for so long. So as people wake up, they don't have to be in this place of confusion and anger. They can funnel themselves really into a place of true love and unconditional love and compassion very quickly, because we have that information out there. So, you know, that's kind of rambling really about what it takes to be a sovereign being, because there's so many different things, but it's happening right now, and we're just at the beginning phases of it. And I'm just hopeful for what's going to happen in the years and decades to come.
Excellent points, really.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's so huge. It's amazing how targeted the self-esteem is, because, I mean, if it doesn't feel good, if there's insults, if there's, I mean, there's geniuses in our schools that are being called, you know, ADD, or they're being slapped labels. I mean, the medical industry is so undermining to the initiation of what illness can bring, which is transformation. To me, those kind of adversities bring us closer to ourselves, but our society encourage us to give that power away when it gets kind of difficult. And yeah, just, oh, I could keep going on. And and Aage, go ahead, and then we'll probably go around one more time and then close with the poem, Neil. That'd be awesome to hear. So go ahead, Aage.
Just a quick one. Somebody just texted me and say, what about the alien invasion and alien takeover? I want to put people a little bit to rest on that one. If there's an alien race out there that think they would want to come and take over Earth and use us as food or whatever thing like that, I think they would have done it by now, because why would they wait until we have the technology to shoot them out of the sky? No, they would have done it 100 years ago or maybe 150 years ago. And no, it's not going to happen that way. The only possible alien invasion will be the fake one created by the cabal, but I don't think it's going to get to that point.
Nice. I just want to say one thing real quick too. I mean, these are the times that we're in where this challenge that we're facing is either going to push us to reclaim our treasures in the fullness of all that we are, or it's going to further immerse us in into a system that is literally thinking for us, and that's enslavement when we give that level of power, you know, to somebody else. And it can be reversed if a person's made that mistake. And I know that what we're witnessing with friends and family that might be making decisions that concern us, I do feel that that can be reversed when the intention and perspective changes, that there is some way to enlighten the technology and enlighten the AI, because we have computer brains. We can't escape technology, but I feel like we have a big job ahead of us in terms of that. Any thoughts from Justin or Dan or do you guys want to ask, you know, questions? Do you want to comment on anything, or aren't I such a great panelist host?
You are.
I do my best.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say anything too specific in case we get censored, but I would say, as a general rule of thumb, anything that's floating around out there that might have been released or is being injected into people and then spreading through their bodies can be absolutely dealt with consciousness, no question.
Yep.
Our immune system is designed to deal with these things, and your mind-body connection can handle way more than we've been led to believe. So I'll just leave it at that. And as far as final comments or anything like that, actually, Tony, you brought up a really good point. I wanted to just mention this real quick about examples and ideals. You know, there's a really important reason why the media has to control so much of what actually emerges in the mainstream. It's because they don't want you to recognize your full potential. There's a reason why prophets and sages and mystics throughout history who figured it out and wanted to try to pass on their knowledge to other people have had that knowledge taken by evil priests and corrupted and twisted and turned into some dead dogmatic, you know, formalized belief system where you have no room to think, let alone try to carve your own path in life. It's because, you know, you, with your ability to reach out to the ideal and really kind of claim your true sovereign power is just so much more powerful than we've been led to believe. I mean, one mind who's willing to dare and question the status quo and try to make something better for themselves is a threat to these people. That's how fragile their control actually is. So, you know, part of what they want to do is they want to take over apotheosis. You know, there's a reason why the idea of, you know, a golden age or extraterrestrials coming and helping us, or, you know, you name it, any of them all fall into the category of hope and transcendence. And it's because we want that deeply ingrained in our DNA. We want to know that there's something better coming, and there is. There's so much something better coming. I mean, there's way more out there than we've been led to believe. And if we're just willing to grasp onto it with our own minds and hearts and be open-minded about that and imagine these possibilities, you will make contact with things that will help you in your life right now. I mean, that's what the real kind of divine technology of prayer and worship is all about, is making contact with that. So just wanted to throw that out there for everybody, and really appreciate the time I've had to share with y'all. So
It's been so wonderful to have you. Really, really can't wait to hear your presentation tomorrow. And what time was that again? 1:40?
it's 11:40, right, Neil? Yeah, 11:40 tomorrow, 11:40 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'll see you then.
Awesome. Sweet. Thanks, Justin. And Dan, any final thoughts? And Tony, we'll kind of go around and then we'll end with the poem.
Well, me being ex-ABC News man, I'm just, pointing out, watch what they do, do your research, and they try to divide us every way possible. They try to divide us by race, politically, religion, every way possible. And if you look at statistics and you look what stories they cover, what statistics, how they push, and how they manipulate it all toward an agenda, it becomes obvious. But my God, you just have to wonder about all the people who, when you grow up as a kid, your parents are watching television and they trust television, and you take that into your adult life and you just naturally trust what you see on television. So you have so many people that have fallen into that, and it's billions of dollars go into psychological think tanks that engineer your perceptions and your consent. And so it's very well polished, and you can see, I watch it, and if you watch the news, you have to stay clear within yourself and understand that you have to constantly counter what is being it's like Hollywood creates movie sets and creates realities. That's what they do when they do the news. They fabricate realities in order to create a perception. And until more of the population understands that, a whole lot of people are going to stay bamboozled, as they say. So, what can I say?
Nice. Great words. Oh, man. That's your word, bamboozled. I love it. Yeah, Tony, any thoughts? And
I'm very humbled and thankful to be here. It's a huge honor at this point. In the beginning, when I came forward, I was just kind of in a tailspin, and I was looking for help and therapy. And it's been a long ways since then. And now that I've been able to sort out a lot of it, to be able to come and talk, I feel like the subject matter really expanded back in 14 and 15 and 16. And it's been under attack ever since from behind the scenes. And I feel like a lot of the information that's gotten out about the secret space programs is starting to curtail, and it's reaching a smaller audience. And I think that it's important that people know that these things exist. And, I'm not so much trying to push my story is a lot of a hard luck story. And I don't want people to think that that's all that's out there. I was a slave up there, but that's not the case for most people that go. And there are fantastic things coming and in the mail. There's a great bountiful check that's in the mail with these technologies involved. Mine case was one of mine was an example of what not to do. And so I think it's important that it be heard and be history in the future, but I don't think it's what's going to happen and where we're going to go. I think that there's a great existence out there that people are unaware of, and I'm just happy to be able to talk about it. And I think that everybody should hear about it. I hate to see the pushback and the censoring that's going on, and I'd like to see everybody kind of band together and fight against the censorship, because we should be able to say whatever we want, as long as it's not something that gets somebody hurt. And that's the case. And so they're really working hard to silence people for the wrong reasons these days. So to be able to speak about what I went through and the things I've seen, which some of them are horrible and some are wonderful, is an honor at this point. And I think thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's just been so amazing to have your presentation and just everything you shared in this panel. And just so glad that this is something everybody can replay. And if you're listening to this and you haven't signed up yet, you can catch everything from today, and just amazing stuff and graphics and PowerPoints. So thank you. Thank all of you. And we're just going to end with Aage's final words and then Neil's poem. And I don't have anything to share except my website's cosmicgaia.org. I got a new show on a platform that will not be censored. It's protected. It's on incredible, like personally managed servers with conscious vitality. So I look forward to you guys checking that out. Really great graphics, high level professionalism. It's really cool. And yeah, so Aage, any final thoughts? And of course, all the gratitude, and I could just go off about just.
I absolutely want to support Tony in something here, that if you go to broadcastteamalpha.com, scroll down in the shows, Nori and I did a video documentary on what's really on Mars, and these are NASA photos with buildings, structures, and there is one there with a human being standing leaning up against a rock, and you can see those pictures there. Same thing for the moon. It's called the moon pictures. Scroll down into the videos and you'll find out what's on the moon. There is one of them that has green vegetation, another one show pyramids up there, and there is all kinds of things that supports exactly what he's talking about, because it's all there in physical evidence. That's my last word.
Nice. Awesome. That's what I love about the synergy, and it's just such a great combination of different information and energies. And Neil, you want to close this out with your poem? And I just want to say goodnight on my end to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Join us for the rest of this conference. If you can't attend, you can purchase and replay anytime, and you don't have to be here for the live part of it. You can enjoy it later on, but the link will be in the description. So thanks everybody for tuning in. This has been just so incredible already, and there's so much more to come. So go ahead, Neil.
Yep. And the replay will go out within 1 to 2 days, everybody. So within 1 to 2 days, we'll send it out. Maybe I'll do it tonight. Who knows? I'm still pretty energized. So we'll see. We'll get that out to you guys. And but all 3 days will be, as soon as the last day's over on Tuesday, on Wednesday, you'll get all 3 days to view as well. So I'm going to do a little poem to close us out here. This is called Empower Thyself. The moment draws near. For years, we've been purging all fears, letting go of the old energies, making room for the new frequencies. I know we all feel these on some level. Higher multidimensional entities, embracing our galactic families, emissaries of unconditional love. The one vibration that fits all creation like a glove. I know sometimes this incarnation, it can seem tough. With Masons illuminating manipulations, facing, tasting, wasting our life away. We must remember the lessons that we're here to play. We chose to be here today. Nothing external to you, to the one you pray. There's only one speck of light, experiencing itself in multiple forms within our sight, taking us to new heights. So go against the norm, no longer conform. But one transitions, there's no reason to mourn. Don't scorn, take out the thorn. The crystalline children are now being born. There is no devil waiting for you with horns. There is only love. The vibration showering us down from density, straight from densities above. We must stand up and say enough and take our power back. With peace and understanding, there's no reason to attack and energize fear, as they are reflections of us. It's time to trust our brothers and sisters. This is a self-imposed test. So you got the job, put your concerns to rest. Through the darkness, the light will firmly nest into the dimension that is next. The moment is now to resurrect the Christ consciousness. Love you all.
Love you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.